I'm Destiny Taylor, 34 years old, and over the past month, I had stepped away from my senior project manager role in Seattle to return to our family home in Missoula, Montana, specifically to assist with the final details of what everyone kept calling the perfect wedding. The original idea seemed straightforward enough: arrive early, coordinate the vendors, ensure all the pieces came together smoothly, then head back after the celebration. But while searching the home office for some insurance documents my mom had mentioned needing, I came across files that changed everything in an instant. Among them was the power of attorney dated well after my father's passing, appearing to give sole control of the inheritance account to one person. Attached were recent bank records detailing transfers totaling $45,000 spread across the previous year, each one labeled clearly for wedding-related costs, like the venue booking, catering services, floral arrangements, and custom dress fittings. Those withdrawals required dual approval according to the original terms my father had established, yet they had gone through with only a single authorization. The timing made the betrayal feel even sharper, because it followed closely after my mom had pulled me aside one evening and delivered the line that cut deepest. "Your sister's wedding would be perfect if you didn't come." She delivered it without raising her voice, almost casually, before shifting the conversation to something trivial. Right then, I understood that the perfection she was chasing had less to do with harmony and more to do with avoiding any inconvenient questions about the funding source. I managed to keep my reaction steady, agreed that I would respect her wishes, and stepped back, quietly. From that point, I began gathering every piece of evidence I could, determined that if they truly wanted me absent from the day, the full story would arrive anyway, and make sure the celebration became unforgettable for all the wrong reasons. Before we continue with what happened next, if this story has already grabbed your attention, please subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below, letting me know where you're watching from and what time it is for you right now. I see and appreciate every single one. Thank you so much for your support. I no longer saw my family the same way as each detail began to piece itself together into a disturbing picture. My father had passed away 10 years earlier from a sudden stroke, leaving behind the family home along the Clark Fork River here in Missoula, along with a substantial inheritance fund split evenly between his two daughters through a trust that required joint approval for any major withdrawal. Until that moment, I had always assumed my mother, Patricia Hayes, was simply overseeing the account as the surviving parent, while my younger sister Sierra prepared for her upcoming marriage to Sierra's fiancé, Austin Brooks. Mom had been the one handling all the financial details since Dad's death, insisting it was easier that way, given my job kept me in Seattle most of the time. With everyone busy around the house, I took the opportunity one afternoon, when no one was around, to go back into the home office and photograph every document I could access. Among the new files I captured were several emails appearing to come from an account in my name, addressed to the family estate lawyer, stating clearly that I wished to relinquish any claim to my share of the inheritance in order to support Sierra's future. The language felt completely foreign to how I would ever communicate, especially the overly formal tone and specific phrasing that matched Mom's style far more than mine. Those messages were dated strategically over the past several months, creating a paper trail that suggested I had voluntarily stepped aside long before any wedding expenses began. Later that same week, I reached out quietly to Nathan Evans, the longtime teller at our local bank branch, who had known our family for years and handled Dad's accounts personally. After explaining I needed to verify some recent activity without alerting anyone else, Nathan confirmed there had indeed been $45,000 moved out of the trust in multiple transactions, all directed toward vendors associated with the wedding arrangements. He pointed out that each transfer carried only one authorization signature despite the trust rules, and the receiving accounts traced back to catering venue deposits and custom design services booked under Sierra's name. Hearing those details laid out so plainly made the intentional nature of everything impossible to ignore. That evening, while pretending to review vendor contracts in the living room, I overheard Mom and Sierra talking in the kitchen about finalizing the remaining signatures before the big day arrived. Sierra mentioned specifically that once everything was complete, there would be no way I could raise questions without looking unreasonable. Mom responded that they just needed to stay careful until after the ceremony, then everything would be settled permanently. Listening to them plan so openly confirmed I could not confront them directly yet. Instead, I transferred all the photos and records to multiple secure cloud locations that same night, making sure nothing could be lost or deleted locally. From that point, I chose to keep my routine normal around the house, while continuing to watch closely for any additional moves they might make. Showing my hand too early would only give them time to cover tracks, so observing without reaction became the immediate strategy, while I figured out the next steps carefully. 2 weeks before the wedding, the need to gather stronger proof outside the house became clear enough that I started reaching out to people who might have seen similar patterns. One of them turned out to be Carla Porter, Mom's former assistant at the small realty office she ran, who had been let go abruptly about a year earlier after questioning certain bookkeeping practices. We met quietly at a coffee shop downtown, where Carla handed over copies of a mortgage loan application that listed the family home as collateral, with an inflated appraisal value far above market rate. The document carried what appeared to be my father's signature authorizing the lien, along with notes indicating proceeds would cover major upcoming expenses. Carla explained that she had kept duplicates because the numbers never added up legitimately, especially since the loan request surfaced right after she raised concerns about missing client funds. Having those pages in hand showed how far the plan extended beyond just the trust account. Around the same time, Nathan followed up with scanned bank logs covering the full 18-month period leading up to now. The records revealed a total of $50,000 moved out gradually in smaller increments that avoided immediate flags, all ending up in Sierra's personal checking account before being redirected to wedding vendors. Each entry included timestamps and approval codes that matched patterns Nathan recognized as unusual for standard trust activity. Seeing the steady drip of transfers laid out chronologically made the long-term nature of the scheme impossible to dismiss as accidental. With that growing file of evidence, I decided it was time to bring in professional help, so I contacted my lawyer, Caitlin Thompson, who focused specifically on inheritance disputes and probate issues. After reviewing the documents and logs during our first meeting, Caitlin arranged for an independent handwriting expert to examine the signatures on both the power of attorney and the mortgage papers. The expert's report came back quickly confirming that every instance of my father's name had been forged with consistent pressure patterns and stroke deviations that ruled out authenticity. Armed with that official analysis, Caitlin immediately drafted and filed a court motion requesting an emergency injunction to freeze any further transactions or liens involving the house until a full review could take place. The filing required detailed affidavits supporting the forgery claims, which we built using the bank records and expert findings, without revealing sources that could tip off Mom or Sierra prematurely. Knowing the judge granted temporary protection orders in similar cases gave some immediate relief. Back at the house, I began compiling a separate timeline of daily routines pulled directly from the security camera footage stored on the system Dad had installed years ago. The clips showed clear patterns of when Mom accessed the office safe or when Sierra brought in new vendor contracts for signing. On several evenings, the recordings captured Mom mentioning casually during phone calls that the inheritance matters had been arranged satisfactorily and would stay that way after the upcoming event. Those offhand comments, spoken without realizing they were being preserved, added another layer of direct intent to everything already collected. That weekend, the guests started arriving. The house began filling with early visitors and bridesmaids who had come to help with final preparations for the ceremony. The increased activity meant more people moving through rooms at all hours, which created both challenges and unexpected opportunities for gathering information. During a casual conversation in the kitchen while sorting decorations, Brandy Lewis, one of Sierra's former bridesmaids who had been part of an earlier wedding attempt that never happened, opened up about her own experience. She described how Sierra had convinced her to cover a $10,000 deposit for a venue booking 2 years ago, promising reimbursement from family funds that never materialized. Brandy explained that after months of excuses, the money simply disappeared, leaving her out of pocket and eventually out of the friendship circle altogether. Hearing her recount the details so matter-of-factly reinforced how long these patterns of taking advantage had been going on. Later that same afternoon, the official wedding photographer arrived to scout locations around the property. Haley Ward, the wedding photographer who had once handled financial audits for my father during his business dealings, recognized several vendor invoices left out on the dining table while setting up test shots. She quietly photographed the pages showing payments routed through accounts that matched the ones Nathan and Carla had already flagged. Haley texted me directly to confirm she had captured clear images of amounts and dates that tied directly to the unauthorized transfers. With these new contributions coming in quickly, I set up a private group chat that included Nathan, Carla, Brandy, and Haley, so everyone could share updates securely without risking overlap or exposure. The thread filled rapidly with additional scans and notes, as each person added what they observed during their time at the house. Throughout the weekend, Mom and Sierra grew increasingly open in front of the early arrivals about how perfectly the wedding financing had come together. They repeatedly mentioned to different groups that every detail was covered generously thanks to careful planning ahead of time. Those comments made within earshot of several people now in the chat provided indirect confirmation of their confidence that nothing would interfere. Watching them present everything so smoothly only strengthened the resolve to keep building the case properly. Caitlin monitored the group messages closely over those days, organizing the incoming files into categories for the strongest possible presentation. By Sunday evening, she informed me that the combined evidence reached the threshold needed to request a formal search warrant from local authorities. She began drafting the application with specific references to the forged documents, bank trails, and supporting statements ready from multiple sources. The process required precise language to establish probable cause, without revealing ongoing collection methods. That Friday evening at the family dinner table, the last full meal together before the ceremony, brought everyone into the same room for the first time in weeks. Mom had prepared a spread that included favorites from past gatherings, while Austin sat next to Sierra discussing final guest counts with visible excitement about the next day. Conversation stayed light at first, covering logistics like timing for photos and transportation to the venue. Then Mom set down her glass and looked directly at me across the table before speaking in a calm, matter-of-fact tone. "Your sister's wedding would be perfect if you didn't come." The words hung there without any immediate follow-up from her, as if she had simply stated an obvious fact. Sierra nodded in agreement right away, adding her own thoughts without hesitation. "You always ruin everything. It's better if you just stay away." Austin shifted slightly in his seat but stayed quiet, focusing on his plate instead of intervening. The directness of both statements caught me off guard in its openness, especially with him present. I let a moment pass before responding, keeping my voice steady despite the sting. "Fine. I won't come." Mom appeared satisfied with the answer, offering a small smile as she returned to passing dishes around. Sierra relaxed visibly, turning back to Austin to resume their earlier discussion about seating arrangements. Throughout the exchange, my phone remained in recording mode inside my pocket, capturing every word clearly since the device was already active from earlier habit. The entire conversation from the moment we sat down now existed as undeniable evidence of intent tied directly to the financial scheme. As soon as dinner wrapped up and everyone moved to other rooms, I stepped outside to forward the fresh audio file, along with selected prior recordings, to Caitlin. She confirmed receipt almost immediately and told me she would package everything into the final submission for the Missoula County Sheriff's Office that same night. The warrant application now included time-stamped proof of motive, spoken openly strengthening the case for immediate action, rather than waiting through normal channels. Caitlin emphasized that local authorities could move quickly on probate fraud once probable cause was established this solidly. From the hallway, I could hear Mom and Sierra in the study making calls to several vendors to verify final payments had cleared. They spoke confidently about how the remaining balances were settled completely from the dedicated fund, unaware that those transactions formed part of the trail already documented. Their relief at my supposed withdrawal translated into loose discussions about wrapping up loose ends before guests arrived in full force the next morning. Hearing them celebrate the perceived resolution only solidified that the timing for outside intervention could not be better. The morning of the wedding finally arrived, with clear skies over the ranch barn venue along the river outside Missoula, where 150 guests from the local community business circles and family friends had gathered for the occasion. The setup included simple decorations that highlighted the natural setting, while tables and chairs filled the space for the ceremony and reception combined. Sierra appeared in her chosen dress as she moved through final preparations with the bridesmaids, drawing compliments from everyone nearby. Mom circulated among arrivals with evident pride, greeting longtime acquaintances and introducing Austin to those who had not met him yet. Haley positioned herself strategically throughout the area, capturing images of handshakes, group conversations, and casual moments that would later serve multiple purposes. Her equipment allowed discreet documentation without drawing attention away from the event flow. As the scheduled start time approached, the officiant called everyone to their seats, and the processional music began playing softly. Austin took his place at the front, delivering a brief welcome speech that touched on building a sustainable family legacy for generations to come. Guests settled in fully by then, many exchanging quiet comments about the smooth planning that had brought everything together so well. My absence became noticeable once the bridal party assembled completely, prompting several people to lean toward Mom or Sierra with questions about where destiny might be. Mom responded each time with a relaxed smile, explaining simply that I had decided to sit this one out at the last minute. Sierra echoed the sentiment nearby, assuring concerned friends that everything was proceeding exactly as intended. The ceremony progressed to the point where the officiant began guiding the couple through their personal vows. Exchanged glances between Sierra and Austin reflected confidence that the day belonged entirely to them now. Tension remained low among attendees who accepted the explanations without pressing further. The atmosphere stayed celebratory, with occasional laughter from shared stories during the wait for the main exchange. Right in the middle of that key moment, several vehicles pulled up the gravel drive leading to the venue entrance. Sheriff deputies stepped out alongside Caitlin, who carried official paperwork in hand. Their arrival shifted focus immediately as the officiant paused mid-sentence to acknowledge the interruption. Guests turned in their seats while Mom and Sierra looked toward the new arrivals with initial confusion. Caitlin moved forward calmly through the aisle, flanked by uniformed officers ready to present the search warrant approved overnight. The document outlined specific allegations tied to financial irregularities discovered in recent days. Right as the officiant asked for the vows, Caitlin stepped forward with the deputies and began reading the search warrant aloud so everyone present could hear the details clearly. The document cited forgery of signatures on estate documents, unauthorized transfers totaling $95,000 from the inheritance trust, and probable cause for inheritance fraud under state law. The officiant stopped completely while guests shifted uncomfortably in their seats, trying to process what they were hearing. Mom stood frozen near the front, her expression changing from confusion to recognition as the specific allegations matched exactly what had been hidden. Sierra gripped Austin's arm tighter, whispering questions that went unanswered amid the growing murmur from the crowd. One deputy announced formally that Mom and Sierra were being detained temporarily for questioning related to financial fraud charges at the state level. The instruction came with a calm explanation that they would need to accompany officers to the station while the venue was secured for evidence collection. Neither Mom nor Sierra offered immediate resistance, though Sierra repeated that everything was a misunderstanding. Haley moved closer to the front row and confirmed to the deputies that she had photographed vendor invoices matching the unauthorized payment trails. Brandy followed next, providing verbal statements about earlier incidents involving deposit money that disappeared under similar circumstances. Nathan arrived shortly after being contacted and presented printed bank summaries showing the exact transfer patterns outlined in the warrant. Carla added her part by handing over copies of the mortgage application she had retained, pointing out discrepancies in the appraisal values. All four spoke clearly enough for nearby guests to hear the connections being made in real time. Phones came out across the venue as people began recording the unfolding events from different angles. Within minutes, clips spread through local Missoula social media groups and messaging threads, turning the private ceremony into public discussion almost instantly. Comments and shares multiplied rapidly as acquaintances recognized faces in the footage. Austin released Sierra's hand quietly before stepping away toward the parking area without further comment. His departure signaled a clear break that several guests noticed and discussed in hushed tones. More than 80% of attendees began gathering belongings and heading out soon after the detention announcement, citing various reasons but clearly uncomfortable staying. The venue emptied steadily until only a handful remained to witness the formal procedures. Local news outlets picked up the story that same afternoon, running headlines about a Missoula wedding interrupted by allegations of inheritance fraud and temporary arrests. The articles included basic facts from public records without naming sources directly. 6 months later, in probate court, the judge reviewed the full case file before delivering a clear ruling on the disputed estate matters. After examining the forgery report's bank records and supporting testimonies, the decision declared every power of attorney document and related contract completely invalid due to proven fraudulent signatures. The order required Mom and Sierra to repay $150,000 in restitution covering the diverted funds, plus additional penalties allowed under state guidelines. Both received 3-year suspended sentences with strict probation terms that included regular reporting and financial monitoring. The bank moved quickly afterward to foreclose on the mortgage lien that had been placed improperly, resulting in the house title reverting fully to me as the rightful heir under the original trust. Mom also lost her local real estate license following a separate review board hearing that cited ethical violations tied to the same transactions. Sierra faced personal bankruptcy filings soon after, when outstanding vendor bills from the canceled wedding came due without any remaining assets to cover them. Austin ended the relationship permanently in the weeks following the venue incident, making any future ceremony plans impossible. With the legal resolution complete, I took immediate steps to secure my boundaries by changing all locks on the property, updating phone numbers, and blocking any channels they might use to reach out. The permanent separation felt necessary to protect the peace I had worked hard to rebuild. In the time since I chose to establish my own project management firm right here in Missoula, focusing on helping small businesses recover from financial setbacks or public challenges similar to what the community experienced. The work allows me to apply skills from my Seattle career while contributing directly to local recovery efforts. Looking back, the greatest lesson from all this is that family ties do not excuse betrayal, and protecting your rights sometimes means standing alone against those closest to you. Trust must be earned consistently, not assumed because of blood relations. When patterns of manipulation appear, documenting everything calmly and seeking professional guidance early can prevent far greater damage later. True justice often arrives through persistence rather than confrontation, and cutting toxic connections completely can open space for genuine healing and growth. No one deserves to have their inheritance or peace stolen under the guise of family loyalty. Thank you so much for staying with this story all the way to the end. Your time and attention mean a lot to me. If anything here resonated with you or brought up thoughts of your own experiences, please share them in the comments below. I read every one and value hearing different perspectives. Let me know what part stood out most or if you have questions about any details.